Hello family, friends, and YouTube. My name's Joe. Welcome to my channel. I'm a husband of one and a father of five. I'm a shop teacher that makes maple syrup. And today I'm going to share my garden with you. This is the August 2023 and these are my family's gardens. And so some of this video you'll see my face, some of it you won't, and I think that'll be okay. So let's start at the very outside of it. So we have a few different garden plots, and so some are experimental, some are pretty well routine. So on the outside edge of the garden, and I thought about doing a side-by-side with the June version of this video, and that probably won't happen. But we always try to plant some flowers, and so as I do my tilling work, the outside of the garden fence, which is just cattle panels with chicken wire, we always plant a few rows of zinnias. And I'm going to tell you, guys, if you don't plant zinnias for the missus or for your mama or for friends and family, you're doing it wrong. Throw some zinnia seeds down and you just get an absolute complete array of colors, a variety of shapes and sizes, and this has probably become one of my favorite parts of the garden. And so they don't taste very good, but they sure do look nice. And so that is where things usually begin. Let's get a thumbnail, right? Let's get a thumbnail. We always got to get a thumbnail. So let's go inside the garden. So my garden here, we usually work in rows. Some rows are wider than others. Yes, you do see some weeds, and quite honestly, at this point of the season, things are going into canning jars. We spend quite a bit of time picking, and the weeds, unless they're really big, the weeds don't get as much attention as usual. So let's start with this row here. You can see that along the outside. We still got some young cucumbers, trying to plant with some succession. And then you see that there is a trellis fence. That trellis fence does double duty. It usually does peas in the spring of the year, and then it will hold cucumbers during the later parts of the year. Along that trellis, we usually plant right in front of that trellis. You can see some kale and some chard, and that just kind of fill space, mostly because cucumbers and peas, they don't do a whole lot of they don't produce a lot of fruit on the ground, and so that kale and that chard really does well. Then the chickens will actually come into this space in the fall, and so any of that we don't get, the chickens will consume. Right in this space you see a double row of beans. They kind of grown together. This is the first picking. This is second picking, and they're probably about 3/4 of the way through the second picking, and then things will start to reflower again. And so at this spot we're a little over 40 quarts of beans canned away, and several meals, and so we're doing pretty good. This is a new planting of cabbage. I like to put them underneath a net. Looks like I need to lower the net and secure it with dirt, but that keeps those moths from setting worms and eggs and all that in there. Got about 13 young broccoli here. We had a very rainy day yesterday, and so these are hopes and dreams, but if those come through, we'll have some really late season snacks. All right, now we got some okra. I never grow okra too well. Okra really likes the hot. But we're getting it. We get some where we get enough where we can roast them up about once a week. And then you can see all the big broccoli down there. And we'll kind of do a scan as we're walking to the other end of the garden. Tomatoes. We started out by planting about 63 tomatoes. And then anytime I come across a volunteer, I will replant it in the pond side row, and we'll take a look at that in a second. They are starting to show a little color. Like I said, they're showing some color. I keep doing a little pruning. I don't know, these things die off a little bit, and that's just what happens. but we prune them. We continue to try to weed them to the best of our ability. Oh man, cherry tomatoes. So many cherry tomatoes. Peppers, lots of peppers. We got about 30 peppers in this row here. Some banana peppers, some Anaheim chili type peppers, jalapenos, and then lots and lots of just bell peppers. This row has become all the extras. You know, you get an extra zucchini, tomato, cherry tomato, extra cabbage, extra broccoli. And we got some beets. Those beets need to get pulled. And then you can see some more tomatoes down there. And some carrots. I'm not so good holding a camera walking at the same time. But you can see that this is just the row of misfit plants, right? Like I said, these were all volunteer tomatoes. As I was doing pruning, these would rip off. You poke them back in the ground and they just grow, right? There's those carrots. Carrots are about ready. Peppers. And then we'll give you kind of a scanning look of everything. There's your tomatoes. There's your broccoli. All right. I learned a valuable lesson this year. Not to put too many leaves in your garden, because quite a few of my tomatoes in that area, you know, all the nitrogen gets bound up trying to rot down leaves, and it doesn't turn out very well. I'm always a little bit embarrassed when I show my garden and there's weeds everywhere, and yet people still go, oh, it's quite a garden. And I don't know what they mean by it's quite a garden, like, oh, that's way too ambitious for some hillbilly, or man, that's really weedy, or they actually think that it's quite a garden. I did have one guy come by one time, wow, that's pretty ambitious. And I took that as probably more than you can handle, young man. But I'll take it, right? So that brings us right into strawberries. We've got 3 rows of strawberries, and the strawberries are doing their thing. I still need to reweed this. We weeded this a couple times through. Putting those runners back into the rows, picking flowers so they send out more runners, and trying to get these strawberries to bush out as much as they can before the dormant season, so that they can bush out, send out those runners, get plants established, so those plants will grow up in the spring, producing some berries, right? Not enough to probably feed a family with those few rows, but it could be, absolutely. There you go, guys. This is one of my favorite areas of the garden, and this is my squash patch, right? My squash patch on trellis. Let me flip you around. Been doing this for a few years now, and I really do like it. I'm sure you couldn't do this with those 600-pound pumpkins, but I do like growing on a trellis. I do like that it keeps things off the ground, that you can get fairly close to your fruit, that you can actually find the squash, find the pie pumpkins, and it helps you be able to just kind of see what's going on. And so there you go. This is very, very fruitful. And these plants are up off the ground. It does definitely bring a new cost element to a squash patch or a pumpkin patch, but it does. I think it allows you to, you know, just like any trellising, allows you to grow more in less space. Zucchinis. That zucchini needs to be picked soon. Zucchinis have not been spectacular like they have in the past. They just mostly want to die this year, but we've had enough. There's a picture of that squash, spaghetti squash. I love this stuff. And so that gives you a good look of what the garden is looking like. Over here is just my perennial stuff. So all my asparagus, horseradish, rhubarb, all that stuff. And it's just a jungle. That's all it does this year, is it's a jungle. There's lots of weeds in there. And mostly that's fine. Let's move on to the next spot. Chicken yard, chicken run orchard is doing great. It's really doing great. I planted 3 baby trees. I shared that in a little video on orchard and a chicken run. And those 3 baby trees are starting to push out new growth. And usually new growth means that those roots have actually got established. And so pretty pleased about that. Keeping my eyes open for a few cheaper, less expensive trees. I would love to add a few more trees to this garden, but they're doing good. Their trunks are getting real thick and strong. Trying to make a plan for pruning, because honestly I don't really know what I'm doing. I haven't sprayed these, and they really mostly look great. I have one small regret, and that's that Honeycrisp over there. I just left too many apples on it. I thinned it. I went out there and pulled a lot of really small ones, but I should have been more aggressive, because all these trees have grown up, and that one's just produced fruit. And probably next year I'll get absolutely nothing off of it. And so a lot of learning curve here, but you know, I guess sometimes you learn easy and sometimes you learn a little harder. This is probably a pretty easy way to learn, but we will continue to add to this, and I will share my successes and the spots where I'm not successful when it comes to this, but I'm pretty happy. And so let's move on. So here we are at the pig pen. How many guys grow food in the pig pen? This guy, right? And so been growing some sunflowers and really squash and pumpkin seed and whatever viney thing that we didn't think would really want to carry over to the next year as far as seeds go. Sometimes the potency of some of those squash seeds, they just kind of fail out as they age. And I'm ready to start a new batch of seeds, if you will. And so sunflowers. So you can definitely see that sunflowers are doing well. They kind of fade out as they get shadier and shadier and shadier. You know, as they get closer to the woods. I have been doing some cutting in the woods. I'll share that on a future video. Trying to let a little light in here, but also do a little clearing project. And so that has been somewhat helpful. But yeah, we got viney things, not even sure which I identify that as, but they've come out to the outside fence there. You can see more viney things out there. Big flowers, and there's going to be big surprises. And this is a fun experiment, because let's face it, it wasn't space that we really used during this year, and probably as far as taking care of any parasite issues, having things grow in this space and consume up some of that fertilizer is a good idea and helpful. Sneak peek past the pig pen, you can see that I have been cutting, and so I've got a couple big giant burn piles, some firewood stacks, and then also back in the woods there, I've been doing a little bit of the same. And so there you go, there's a little sneak peek. We'll talk about that later. Then the last section I have is the potato patch with its little squash patch as well. And so potatoes are pretty much kind of dying off. It is a little bit hard to tell. Take you over that way. It's a little hard to tell how the potatoes are actually doing as far as the growth and the dying off stage, just because there's so many weeds mixed in with those potatoes. But they seem to be doing good. I'm sure some of those weeds consumed up some of that energy, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do in that situation. Am I supposed to weed all those rows? I'm not down with spraying things just for spraying. I probably could have piled more dirt on, and that would have been a little bit helpful. I did run the tiller down the rows maybe a month ago, just to kind of reestablish where those rows were. And so that's going to be helpful come harvest time, but they're there. They look great. And we've had to do a little bit of watering to those, but not too bad. Bringing to this spot, I do got 2 more of those cattle panel trellises. Got a couple of zucchinis down in front, leftover onion sets. I buried super deep so they're nice green onions. And these guys are trellising out. So once again, I'll get on the other side of the camera. I do all this with my phone, and sometimes the selfie mode really blurs out, but you can see that things are growing. They're growing quite well. They are flowering. You even see some fruit getting established. And so mostly what I have planted this year is blue Hubbard, red Hubbard, spaghetti squash, pie pumpkins, and butternuts. And so we will see what really takes off, what hasn't. I know those Hubbards are more a bush type plant, and you can see some of that down there where they won't do a lot of climbing. But things are looking good. Looks like I have to retrain things a little bit. But there you go, guys. So really quick, I know it's kind of silly to share off all these gardens. I'm nothing spectacular. Probably not even pleasant to watch on YouTube, but we work on this. I've got the time. I'm able to spend the summers with my children and kind of integrate in growing of food and preserving food. And I think that is something worth just recording. Like I said, people have been doing this for hundreds and thousands of years, growing as much food as they can and preserving it to the best of their ability. You know, I cry a lot of times that, oh, I can't store squash too long. And those guys did it. They did it. They figured it out. They dug a hole in the ground. They did it. And they survived. And so here we are. We're just growing some food and sharing some of that, sharing some of our successes. And then those spots where we're just plain unsuccessful. We're acting silly, and we're just sometimes unsuccessful, and that's okay. So anyhow, I think someday I'm going to talk about this trellis system in its own video, because I think it's smart. It's really worked out very well. We used to grow this whole potato patch area in a pumpkin squash patch. And it didn't get much. It would get all jungled, and then it would get wet, and then it would just rot. And so there you go. I don't even know how I'm gonna edit this. There's a lot of video clips, this and that, flipping around. But nonetheless, we'll get this out there, and time to go pick some beans. And so you guys take care, and we will talk to you later. Bye now.